The American Romantic period, which lasted from about 1830 to 1870, was a time of rapid expansion and growth in the United States, which fueled intuition, imagination, and individualism in literature. Now, when you think about stories that are labeled romantic, you probably think of a romance novel where some half-dressed woman has some Fabio-esque guy hanging all over her. That is not what we're talking about in the American Romantic period. Now, don't get me wrong. Like those stories, romantic literature is both adventuresome and improbable, but it's a lot more than just a randy love story. Now, in 1830, just 50 years after the Revolutionary War, America was still really young, but its citizens were anxious to create their own identity that was uniquely American and not so reliant on European values. Therefore, the American Romantic movement challenged the very rational thinking that we saw in the Age of Reason during the Revolutionary War. So this period produced fewer instructional texts and more stories, novels, and poetry. Within these stories, novels, and poems, there are 5 characteristics that we can use to identify American Romantic literature. These are imagination, individuality, nature as a source of spirituality, looking to the past for wisdom, and seeing the common man as a hero. The first of these characteristics is imagination. This falls in line with the Industrial Revolution, which was a great time of progress. And in many cases, when there is progress, there is also great optimism. People start to imagine what could happen next, and progress continues. On the flip side of that, with that much progress, a lot of people began migrating to big cities that were becoming overpopulated. The cities became dirty and disease-ridden. So it's no surprise that many people wanted to escape that. Therefore, the American Romantic writers embraced that notion through escapism. This is where the mind allows you to escape harsh conditions by taking you to a place that is purely beautiful. Characters in romantic literature are often journeying away from the city and into the countryside, to a place that's not totally realistic, to a place that has improbable and even supernatural qualities. The authors develop these places with imagery to make the reader experience the locale as if it was real. Now, Washington Irving, who's known as the father of American literature, wrote a story called Rip Van Winkle, which is about a man who wanders out into the woods to escape some chores his wife is asking him to do. After falling asleep for 20 years in the woods, he not only escapes his chores, but his wife as well, because she's dead. This fanciful escape is typical during this time, but it's something we still see in movies today. Think about the movie Avatar. Jake Sully is able to escape by assuming a new identity in a beautiful new world. Even the audience, as they watch, is able to escape reality as they experience the fantastical world of Pandora. So we see escapism continues today. The second characteristic used to identify American Romanticism is individuality. As people are moving into the frontier, they are establishing new areas in ways that best suit their needs. Not only are people moving across the country, but into the country. Immigration begins, creating what we now call the melting pot in America. As a result, you see not only people creating an identity for themselves, but the country creating its own identity as people with different social pasts come together to create something new. Americans also wanted to distance themselves from Europe and become intellectually independent. This shows up in literature with characters who live on the outskirts of society. Kind of like that old school cowboy, they aren't going to follow the norms that have come over from Europe. They're going to follow their intuition, their feeling, and they're going to embrace this newly found freedom and become individuals. Third, we have nature as a source of spirituality. Remember, initially the Puritans were